week's list is on the early Roman Empire. We'll be talking about a few concepts, such as early wars in Rome, enemies of Rome, great Roman leaders, and ultimately we'll talk about the path that Rome took to go from republic to dictatorship. The first concept you should know about for the beginning of the Roman Empire is Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a general who ended the Roman Republic and seized power for himself. This conflict started when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River. He was told by the Senate not to do this, but he did it anyway, and this started a civil war. Caesar ultimately gained power when he defeated his rival general Pompey. Pompey was Rome's general to the east, and Caesar was Rome's general in the west and the north, and he fought the Gauls for many years. The Gauls were the people in what is now known as France. After Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, civil war raged for 3 years. In the end, he became dictator for life. Julius Caesar unfortunately met an untimely end when he was stabbed to death 23 times on the steps of the Senate. This day was the middle of March and is known as the Ides of March. During Caesar's lifetime, he did many good things too. Caesar began many reforms such as building projects for unemployed Roman citizens. He also staged gladiator fights and started a new calendar. The second term for the list is Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus was Rome's first emperor and ruled for 41 years, and he should not be confused with Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus are related. Caesar Augustus is the grandnephew of Julius Caesar. His name was originally Octavian. So after the assassination of Julius Caesar, there were years of fighting. Octavian eventually seized power. The Senate named Augustus as emperor, which means honored one. He became supreme ruler of the Roman Empire. He encouraged education and literature, and he had harsh punishments and enforced those laws. He started many construction projects and even founded a police force and fire department for Rome. The third term on this week's list is Gaul, or the Gauls. The Gauls are the people from Gaul. They lived in what is now known as modern-day France, and they were rivals of the Romans. Julius Caesar, in fact, was the general who fought them in many wars, and in fact, eventually conquered them. Most of the territory of Gaul was incorporated into the Roman Empire in the third expansion, which occurred in 145 to 44 BC. The fourth term for this list is the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars were fought between Rome and its rival to the south, Carthage. Punic is the Latin word for the word Carthage. There were 3 Punic Wars. The Carthaginians had a famous leader named Hannibal Barca, and he defeated the Romans on many occasions. But now let's talk about the 3 Punic Wars in order. The first Punic War began in 264 BCE, and the powerful Carthaginian navy was defeated by Rome, and the result of the war was that Rome got to keep Sicily and other islands around it. Now, in the second Punic War, this is where we meet Hannibal. His full name's Hannibal Barca, and this started 23 years later. This is the war where Hannibal led his army with elephants over the Alps. Yes, he brought elephants over a snowy landscape, the Alps, and surprise attacked Rome. Unfortunately, Hannibal eventually lost, and Carthaginian had to give up Spain and vast sums of wealth. Now for the third Punic War. This began 50 years later, and a Roman senator named Cato wanted Carthage to be completely destroyed. In 146 BCE, the Romans burned Carthage to the ground, killing many people and selling many people into slavery. Although the Roman Empire expanded, the wars created a lot of destruction with loss of life and property. And the last term on the Peppy List for the week is Spartacus. Spartacus is probably the most famous slave to have ever lived. Spartacus led a revolt in Rome in 73 BCE. There's been many movies and TV shows made about him. Rome had to subdue many slave revolts, but this was the most difficult one. The expansion of Rome led to many prisoners being captured and converted to slaves. They worked on farms and in the city. Slaves in Roman society were often mistreated. The Romans eventually crushed Spartacus and crucified many of his followers. Some slaves were forced to fight in the Colosseum as gladiators. And that's the Peppy List for the Roman Empire.